Greetings sailors and welcome to a bit of Akizuki footage because, as you may be aware, the new Japanese destroyers are nearly upon us. Now I say new. Most of the destroyers are actually rejigged existing destroyers, but there are a couple of new ships in amongst them and the Akizuki is one of them. The idea is that you've got the main branch going to the Shimikaze at tier 10, which will remain the stealthy torpedo droppers, although there are some changes happening to them. And then you've got a branch splitting from tier 5 going up to tier 8, which are more meant as gunboats. And this is that tier 8 gunboat, the Akizuki. However, I'm not going to be speaking too much about the ship itself, because Wargaming, once again, as they did with the Royal Navy cruisers, have given us very little lead time. In fact, there was something like 16 hours between us getting the ships and the embargo lifting on us being able to talk about the ships, which is not a lot of time. So anybody that's done a definitive or an attempt at an authoritative video trying to say, well, this is how you play these ships, this is definitely what they're like now, I would take that with a pinch of salt, simply because there really hasn't been enough time to get a handle on these new vessels at all. And it's slightly better than with the RN cruisers, where I think it was like 2 days before the patch came out with the new ships. And there really wasn't a lot of time to sit down and play any significant number of battles with any of them. This time we've got slightly more time before the patch, although I don't know that for sure. I don't actually know when the patch is coming out. They haven't told us that. But it's just, there's just been such a short lead time with the actual embargo date. And I don't know why that is. It's not something that really affects most people. It only really affects us community contributors who get early access to these things. But it's now the second time in a row where we've had something like this. I mean, the previous time before that, with the German battleships, we did get enough time. I had sufficient lead with those, we all did, where I could play at least 3 or 4 games in each of the new German battleships, and in some cases it was more like, a dozen plus games. Going back to my very first, and this is just for stark contrast, the very first preview video I ever did of the Tirpitz, I think I played maybe 50 battles before I made that video, which is, even for just a single premium, I wouldn't do that these days. That's probably way too much time spent on a single ship. But with 50 battles, and it's just, to compare and contrast, 50 battles, you have far more idea what you're talking about than you do with even 3 or 4 battles. But even 3 or 4 battles, would be hard-pressed to do that with 10 ships. And they're not all new ships, some of them are rejigged ships, but you'll be hard-pressed to get a handle on all of these new vessels to see how they actually feel. And there are significant enough changes to even the rejigged existing ships that it is going to change how they operate as stealthy torpedo droppers. Now, I've only done the numbers up to tier 6 thus far, because even just pulling out the numbers for the destroyers and putting them in a spreadsheet is a time-consuming task in of itself. But up through at least tier 6, everybody's lost detection range, basically. They're all now easier to spot from further away. And this includes down to tier 4. The Isakaze has basically had a straight nerf. Well, some of that continues through to tier 5 and tier 6 as well. So even the existing ships have changed, and if anything, it makes the desirability of concealment expert as a captain skill so much more important now, because your base detection has dropped. Now, I don't know if it affects the high tier destroyers in quite the same way as it does the lower mid tier destroyers, but it's still, it's a change to the line, a significant change in my opinion. And it would be really nice if Wargaming had given us more time to explore this, to try out different builds and different captains or whatever. So it really is on Wargaming, and I couldn't really tell you why this is the second time in a row this has happened. It might just be miscommunication, it might be someone further up the chain as an afterthought going, oh yeah, we should probably tell the community teams that they can tell their contributors that they can now talk about the ships. We should probably organise that at this point, now that they're, however many days away from release, because I think it will be not that many days. I'd be surprised if it's if we're that long before the next patch. So overall, Wargaming done goofed. I mean, last time around with the British cruisers, I think I did one live gameplay video with the Minotaur, and it was like, well, I'm not going to kill myself over this. If Wargaming simply cannot be asked to give us enough leeway, then enough lead time, then I'm not going to like stay up all night, multiple nights in a row, playing these ships in order to try and understand what they are. And that's pretty much the same this time. Like, the amount of effort I'm prepared to put in is sort of tempered a little bit by how much effort Wargaming is prepared to put in. And it's not even like it's effort exactly. It's them putting these ships on our accounts. We're the ones that have to then go away and play them. You know, from that point of view, obviously Wargaming is... They've spent quite a long time with the super testers, these ships. They've spent quite a long time being balanced and rejigged, and you know, they've clearly spent the time getting the feedback on these ships. And my initial impression is that as a line, although they maybe have nerfed the ability to make stealth torpedo drops for the regular branch, they still feel okay-ish, but that's a very initial impression. I think anybody that's trying to give a definitive, you know, I know what I'm talking about with these ships 100%. Yeah, I've probably said that already, but take that with a pinch of salt. That's just not going to have been possible in the amount of time they've given us. If you concentrated on 1 or 2 ships, maybe, but 10 ships? No. It's just not possible. So, enough about that maybe. Although, actually, there is one final thing I want to mention, and it won't have been in other people's videos yet because we only just got this information a little bit earlier today. There has been more than a few people wondering what the hell is going to happen if you already have some of these ships, because a lot of the ships are moving tiers. For instance, the Hatsuharu and the Fubuki are both moving down to tier 6, which is a fairly big change for both of those ships. What if you already have a Fubuki or a Hatsuharu? Well, in my case, you know, the Kagero. Okay, I'll take that as an example because I actually have a Kagero and it has the premium camo on it. I've actually spent doubloons on the camo. So what's going to happen is with the Kagero moving down to tier 8, I will keep a Kagero at tier 8. So I'll have the new rejigged Kagero. I will also get in my port the new tier 9, and both of those ships will have the premium camo on. And that's actually more generous than I was expecting from Wargaming. But I have to say that's probably because it's World of Warships. If this was World of Tanks and we were having something along these lines, I doubt they would be as generous, because in the past they haven't been. And it's I think more down to the fact that, you know, smaller player base, and they are more wary about excessively annoying customers, especially ones that have paid actual money for things, and so they're inclined to be a bit more generous. And we can actually take an example from early on with World of Tanks when they made some changes to the American Heavy line. The T-30, which is these days a tier 9 medium tank, that used to be on the heavy tank branch. And they switched some things around. The T-30 got switched over, the T-34 appeared, and basically if at that point you had up to, it was either tier 9 or tier 10, I can't remember. You basically got a free T-34 out of these changes. Now, I'm not saying it's that generous, but especially with the higher tier ships, you know, if you're in my position with premium camo on the Kagero, tier 9 premium camo is not especially cheap in terms of doubloons. And so getting 2 ships worth of premium camo when you've already paid the price for one, that's actually not bad. I think that's better than some people were expecting. So overall, that's a positive move. But, you know, if this was like 3 years' time and Warships had a lot larger of a player base, Wargaming would probably be less generous at that point, just based on my experience with World of Tanks. But maybe they would be that generous. I don't know. I mean, bear in mind, okay, it's Wargaming, but the studio that makes World of Warships is a separate studio under Wargaming than the studio that, you know, the main studio that produces World of Tanks. These are 2 separate groups of people. So, who knows? So that's good news. Anyway, if you've got the existing ship, you know, let's say you've got a Mitsuki at tier 6, well, you're going to get the new Mitsuki at tier 5, but you're also going to get the tier 6 replacement for that on that line. And if you've got the premium camo, then you'll get the new premium camo on the new ship as well. So yeah, it's nice. And it's also, if you happen to own one of the tier 5 premium destroyers, it's particularly nice for you as well, because you're in the position of Gremiashi owners from way back when, where it retrospectively got more powerful because of subsequent changes to the game. The Gremiashi in particular retains the old, like when you fire your guns, your detection range goes up. The Gremiashi gets plus 3.9 kilometers when it fires its guns. Other destroyers get plus 5.9 kilometers. So the Gremiashi has a better stealth firing capability. Both the Japanese destroyers are going to keep their old, the premium ones are going to keep their old, all their existing, their current concealment ranges, and they're going to keep their existing torpedoes and the existing torpedo speeds, and you know they're going to basically have the characteristics they have now, which is going to be better than what the new tier 5s will have. So it's good news if you happen to own one of those. And it was a bit sneaky of Wargaming to put the Kamikaze on sale not that long ago, and I must admit I'm one of the people that went and bought it, even though it was priced rather expensively for a tier 5 destroyer. I think it was it more expensive than the Błyskawica, or about as expensive? I can't remember, but it was as expensive as a higher tier premium, essentially. And I bought one anyway. I was one of those people. But in this case, my own justification for it was that I get bought a lot of premiums by people. I get gifted a lot of premiums when they come out. And so, having not had to buy myself a Leningrad or a Scharnhorst or any of the other recent premiums, I then decided, okay, I'm gonna treat myself. I'm gonna splurge on this, knowing that any changes that come to the Japanese line will probably not occur to the premiums, because that's Wargaming's policy. Basically, they very rarely make significant changes to premiums, even when it means those premiums get to retain things like, you know, World of Tanks, the FCM 36 Pack 40, Tier 3 tank destroyer, has a 400 meter base view range, stuff like that. So, I've managed to talk about not the game for most of this, but you have been able to see for yourself that this is a very capable ship. I mean, this is the top of the second branch, the partial branch. It culminates in this ship, and it's pretty good. Although I've just massively goofed by not smoking the Bayern. I should have slowed down, put some smoke in, and tried to keep him alive, because we're about to lose him, and that's going to give the enemy team more points. And we are so very badly down on points. Most of this game was basically spent defensively fighting around this cap point. And I've done a fair old whack of damage in the meantime, but that one goof alone, not keeping the Bayern alive, that was a significant mistake on my part. We also have a Farragut who has been AFK the entire game. He's going to end the match with 0 XP. He's done nothing. Loaded into the game, didn't move. So we've been 11 ships versus 12, plus I've made a massive mistake myself. And unfortunately, that is going to end up costing us the game. I'm going to try and get to the C cap point, but if I'd kept the Bayern alive, we would have more points. And we would have more time. But as it is, we're also going to lose that New Mexico. There we go. It gets flooded by the enemy carrier. That puts them over 900. I just can't get there in time. I think I got to the cap circle and started capping, but it wasn't, like, there just wasn't enough time to complete the cap, and there wasn't enough time to go and find their carrier. So this game, I mean, it was a decent result, but I goofed massively in not keeping that Bayern alive, and I could have. And that definitely contributed to the loss there. But it did show you some of what the Akizuki is capable of, and it does feel like a very capable ship. That, at least, is my initial impression of it. Because, you know, I've only played about 3 games in it so far, and I've played a couple of games in each of the other ships, but it's not been enough to make like to form a definite impression. Yeah, even just a first, you know, a definite first impression. So anybody that is claiming the definitive view, yeah, be skeptical. Definitely be skeptical. So there we are. More torp damage than anything else. I mean, you've only got the single launcher, but the fact that you can use the torpedo booster consumable alongside your smoke and your speed boost is super useful. You effectively get 2 launchers every so often, and it came in very handy. But I also got a bit of luck with detonating that fuso as well, and sometimes games work out like that. But he wasn't too mad about it. I mean, you may have noticed that in the chat, because he did get some flags as a result. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tomorrow try and do just a port overview, run down the stats, what's changing with these new ships, but that won't really tell you too much about playstyle and you know, the actual impact that's going to have in game. You're just going to have to, I don't know, go by other people's first impressions and form your own first impressions when these ships come out, because I honestly don't think I'm going to have enough time to do my usual thing where I do gameplay videos and lay out the stats as I'm going along, just because Wargaming has just shafted us again, and I don't know why. And I know that doesn't affect you lot, but at least the thing that does affect everybody, the compensation for ships already owned, at least that has been done right this time. I think that's a big positive from Wargaming. So hopefully you have enjoyed this ramble. It wasn't so much about the actual ship itself, but you got to see some of it in action. If you have, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.